When we place ourselves in a landscape, we become aware of the mountains or cliffs or fields of flowers, bodies of water that surround us. But what if we create our own landscape from our inner worlds and wild dreams? Today, Ryan and I are sharing 2 different ways we're sheltering, finding solace in the landscapes we each dream up. Let's begin. What landscapes do you imagine for the world, Ryan?
Imagination Library, where their books take you to any place you can imagine and see any landscape that exists. I've always wanted to come here. I want to go to a place where people don't live, where the weather's extreme. How about this book about the pyramids? So I'm imagining that a flower or even a tree could live there. Whoa! I'm actually here. And in this desert area is the flower that I imagined, and even a tree stump. I would have thought a tree and a flower so vibrant wouldn't survive here. Although this is my imagination, I would guess it would take a lot of patience for something to adapt to these conditions. It's so hot here. I guess maybe a world of patience and seeing other perspectives I wouldn't otherwise experience is what I wanted to see in this landscape. I guess that's my true imaginative landscape. I use the deserts and the pyramids that actually exist and imagine things that wouldn't grow there, seeing how it would adapt to grow there. That requires a lot of time and patience. So that's what drove and inspired my design and my imagination. You can create a landscape too of your own, but if you notice in mine, I created a pyramid. That was all used by cardboard and glue holding it together and tape. You can also create one yourself, and I'm going to show you how I did it coming up. To get started, we'll just need a few materials. First, we'll need tape, scissors or some kind of razor blade, ruler, and glue. And of course, lots of cardboard. So one of the first steps that we're going to take is to cut a square. I have a couple of large sheets of cardboard because I want to make it as large as I can. Where I'm going to open my cardboard is on the side where it's glued down. And we're going to open it up so it's completely flat. The widest my cardboard size is 32 inches. So I'm measuring out a full square of 32 inches. To do that, I am measuring down each side, and I also want to create a flap on the side, just like on the other side of my cardboard. So I'm making marks of where this flap is going to be, and I'll explain why a little later what those flaps are going to do. Now that I've created my outline, I'm going to cut down on the cardboard to pull out the square. Then the next step I'll do is flip it over to the other side and score where that flap is. Scoring just means I'm only going to cut halfway through the cardboard, not all the way through, because I want to be able to just easily fold it over. So as you can see now, I have a flap just like the other side. So we're going to put that cardboard off to the side really quick, and we're going to make triangles. To do that, I am measuring the whole width of my cardboard, that's 32 inches, and finding the center, which is 16 inches, and we're creating a mark all the way down the cardboard of that center. And then we're going up high 32 inches in the middle of our cardboard. And from that center spot, we're going to measure out to the edge of our cardboard, creating an evenly spaced out triangle shape. And so once we have it evenly placed, the marks placed out, we're going to cut that triangle out. And we're going to do that 4 times, actually. We're going to create 4 triangles, a triangle for each side of the pyramid. Now here I'm just testing out to see if that triangle is even. Now that we see it's even, on that flap that we cut earlier, we're gluing that down and placing books over top of that triangle. And we're just going to pull it off to the side. Now while that's drying, we're going to create a total of 4 flaps. For the first step, we'll just use 2. So just find a side of a cardboard where it already has a crease and cut out 2 rectangle shapes. We're going to glue one side of the flap down to one of our triangles here on one side and glue another on the other side of the triangle. So as you can see, I'm just gluing half of a side down, and we're going to place it on our triangle. Then we'll do the same to the other side. So we want to put a few books down on that too to make sure it dries. And every time we glue, we place down books, and depending on the kind of glue you have, it'll dry pretty quickly. So once you've given it enough time to dry, we'll want to put our other set of triangles onto those flaps. So the loose side that doesn't have glue on the flap, we'll put some glue down and we'll attach a triangle to it. And we'll do the same with our other flap and our other triangle. So what you should have here is half of a pentagon, so that's 4 sides to that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on that size of the pentagon. And we'll give it time to dry. And now that it's dried up, we're going to pull back that square that we had put together earlier. And on that extra flap that we had from the beginning, we're going to put some glue on that and attach our middle triangle to it. We're just placing books down once again to give it time to dry. Now this part is a bit challenging. What you'll do is take another set of flaps and glue it on the inside of your pyramid. And once you have that glued together, it's pretty much done. The last thing that I'm doing is just taping all of the edges and loose areas together just to give it some extra security. And here's our pyramid all together, all sides.
I so appreciate Ryan's calculated and intentional approach to creating a pyramid in a landscape that seems harsh, but he and the flower have learned to adapt to. So where Ryan went calculated, I'm going to go abstract. I'll look at the forms in nature to guide the way I move as I create my imagined landscape sheltered in my fire escape.
Hi, welcome to my kitchen. You're in my kitchen today because in order to create my imagined landscape shelter, I need to first do some prep work. So to make my imagined landscape shelter, I'm using dyed cloth. So to do that, I'm gonna show you how you can use kitchen items like spices and food leftovers to dye material and to create paper using this pot. Okay, let's get started. So here are the materials I'm working with. A lot of these materials are going to be an experiment. I'm not quite sure how they'll end up, but that is part of the process. I have this safflower here, which is a less common spice, but a spice nonetheless, and that's going to give me some reddish orange tones. I have purple onion skins, red onion skins, and yellow onion skins, which will make 3 different colors. You can see my hands have already been dyed by the turmeric, which is a spice that will give us a really beautiful orangish yellow tone, golden. I have red cabbage here. I have a beet. I have some berries. I have avocado peels and avocado pits. Believe it or not, I think these are going to give us some pink colors. And I have these acorns, which I don't know how they're going to come out. I don't know what they'll do. I haven't tried them yet, but I've read that you can do it, so we're going to give it a try And I have these dried flowers from a bouquet that I'm actually going to crush up and see if I can make kind of a paint out of these.
You'll see that for each ingredient, I put in a separate pot with hot water and I let that soak and boil for about an hour for each material, depending on how much of the material you have. And after that, you strain it and put it in another bowl with the cloth that you are ready to dye.
Here are
and
all
that
my
is called a dye bath.
I'm going to give you a little show and tell so you can see what worked. This here is the turmeric. You can see it came out a rich yellow. I love it. It gives me some marigold vibes or some sand. This here is bathed in coffee. And I kept the grounds to kind of keep some grit and dirt because that'll add to my landscape. This has me very excited. It's my first time dyeing with red cabbage, and look how vibrant. It gives me some violet, maybe a beautiful field of flowers. This is going to add to my landscape. This here was the avocado pits and a few of the skins. You can see it's pretty faint. It didn't pick up a lot of color, but I'm wondering if after this soaks overnight, perhaps I can use this as a watercolor if it doesn't really keep the color for this. But there is a bit of a dye here. And you can see it's attached to this cloth. I'm not being too precious with the cloths because it is pretty, I'm keeping it pretty abstract. And this part here of the same cheesecloth is in safflower. And I love this yellowish orange tint, cool. And here also a little more of a faint one. This is the beets. So it gives it a bit of a brown tone. And this is just scrap fabric. So you can see I have some bits of other colors here. And then this is a drop cloth I have. I just keep it when I'm working usually to wipe up different things, to test out colors, test out different paints. So I actually keep that around, and I like to, because it collects such awesome color otherwise, that I'm kind of dipping it in all sorts here. So you can see this drop cloth went into the safflower, into the turmeric, and then here is one color I'm very excited about. It's like a pinkish red, brown, and I love it. It's the red onion skins. So there we go. We're gonna let it sit overnight a little bit and see how it goes in the morning. I have some of my dyed cloths ready here. This is from the red skin onion. This is from the red cabbage. And this is actually a drop cloth. It's kind of a scrap piece of clothing, cheesecloth, that I use when I'm working just to tidy up, test out paints. And so I dip some of it in the turmeric, you can see, some of it in the red onion. And I love this because it's just collected all these masses of colors, and I'm going to use this as inspiration to keep that abstraction. So for my imagined landscape, I want to make sure that I'm keeping all of these cloths that will be eventually draped to create my landscape quite abstract. So maybe this is the sand, or maybe it's marigolds. Maybe this is a field of lavender, or maybe it's the twilight sky. I'm gonna work in abstraction so that I give myself some creative freedom just to let go, and my imagination and the story will really be crafted from my imagination when I'm in my shelter. So I'm gonna be continuing working with some abstraction by using these materials and adding some paint. To kind of add more colors and add more dimension. And then I'm also going to be playing with some materials I have found materials. This is an old blind here. This is an old screen. I have an umbrella and a shower curtain that I'm going to paint on and see if I can add it to my imagined landscape. All right, let's get started.
As I work, I want to make a note to the caregivers that this medium of abstraction really allows for collaboration between you and your young ones. So as you create gestural strokes or play with color, I invite you to craft a story together. What are the landscapes that make you feel safe? What are the landscapes that scream possibility? What are the landscapes that keep you grounded as you prepare to co-create the kind of world that you want to live in? It's time to set up the shelter. The idea behind this project of sheltering in imagined landscapes is that while right now we're sheltering ourselves in safety, we can look ahead further into the world and dream up possibilities of what we want the world to look like. You can use pillows, blankets, furniture, anything you have at home to create your shelter. Are those mountains or an undercurrent of a wave? Are those clouds or sea foam? Hanging vines in a forest or pastures of grass? I'm sheltering in a landscape that transforms from one to the other with ease. In some ways, the landscape I am dreaming up, the shelter I've created here, it is a simple landscape. It is a simple landscape with wild gardens full of vegetables and flowers that anyone and everyone can tend to, and we remember how essential these landkeepers are. It is a landscape that holds running trails that protect Black men who want to go for a jog without worrying for their safety. In some ways, it's a seemingly simple landscape that I'm imagining, isn't it? But I also imagine a landscape that is pure magic. It is a magical tundra landscape, the kind of landscape that holds the vibrancy of grass and lichen, while also holding the name of a barren land with no trees. And this tundra landscape that I'm dreaming up has hills made of ice that remember the landscapes we've endured before we dreamed up new ones. Author Arundhati Roy says, quote, "Pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next." End quote. She says we can either choose to walk through this portal, carrying all the things that make this world hard, or, quote, "we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it." What world are you imagining? What are the landscapes that will shelter us in this?